The galaxy had known peace for 3,000 years. It was not a fragile peace, nor an uneasy one. It was the kind of peace that made young species believe war was a myth, something ancient holograms whispered about in history modules. The Galactic Council, a grand assembly of 67 intelligent species, governed trade, law, and exploration. At the heart of this order stood humanity. Humans were not the oldest species, nor the strongest. The Vorth, a reptilian race with armored scales and plasma rifles built into their wrists, could tear a starship hull open with their bare claws. The Xylari, ethereal gas beings who lived inside crystalline matrices, could compute hyperspace routes faster than any supercomputer. Yet, when the Council needed a problem solved, they called humanity. Human diplomats ended the Krentar border war in 3 days. Human engineers designed the quantum relays that let messages travel across the spiral arms in real time. Human soldiers, when the rare pirate fleet emerged, turned battles into poetry of precision and mercy. Every species respected, feared, and secretly envied them. And then, without warning, they vanished. Not died, not retreated, severed. Every human colony, every orbital station, every deep space vessel simultaneously shut down all external communications. The quantum relays went silent. The embassy on Council World Etheris became a tomb of sealed doors and dark windows. The human homeworld, Terra, wrapped itself in an energy shield so dense that not even neutrinos escaped. No messages, no demands, no explanation, only silence. The galaxy waited. Days turned into months. The Council sent probes. The probes returned as molten slag. They sent diplomatic shuttles. The shuttles orbited Terra once, then powered down and drifted like dead leaves. Desperate, the Vorth Admiralty fired a warning shot at a human listening post near the Orion Nebula. The shot vanished into an invisible wall of gravity, then reappeared 2 seconds later and destroyed the firing ship's own engine. It became clear humans had not been defeated. They had chosen to leave. The mystery gnawed at every species. Why would the most useful, most powerful race in the galaxy abandon everything? Some believed humans had discovered a terrible secret, perhaps a cosmic threat approaching from beyond the galactic rim. Others thought they had finally revealed their true nature, conquerors in disguise, waiting to strike. A few, the old and wise, whispered that humanity had grown tired. Tired of solving everyone else's problems. Tired of watching smaller species make the same mistakes. Whatever the reason, the vacuum they left did not remain empty for long. The first crack appeared in the Kessik corridor, a trade route that had been under human protection for 800 years. Without human patrol ships, the Ixthar, a scavenger species with more hunger than ethics, began raiding merchant convoys. The Council voted to send a joint fleet. But without human logistics, the supply chains, the repair ships, the real-time coordination, the fleet arrived late, low on fuel, and divided by command disputes. The Ixthar ambushed them at the Dren Nebula. 2,000 ships lost. That was the spark. The Vorth, humiliated by the defeat, accused the Xylari of sabotaging the fleet's navigation data. The Xylari, in turn, claimed the Vorth had deliberately slowed their response to weaken the Council. Accusations became threats. Threats became border closures. Within 6 months, the Council had fractured into 3 armed blocks. The Vorth-led Armada of Order, the Xylari-led Concord of Minds, and a dozen neutral systems trying desperately to survive alone. War did not arrive like a thunderstorm. It seeped in like poison gas. A disputed mining claim here, a damaged freighter there. Then a Xylari crystal station exploded near Vorth space. The Vorth blamed sabotage. The Xylari blamed a reactor malfunction caused by Vorth jamming signals. Neither side asked for proof. Neither side wanted peace. They wanted revenge against someone, anyone, and humans were no longer there to calm the rage. The galaxy fell into violent conflict not because it wanted war, but because it had forgotten how to prevent one without humanity standing between them. Document 2: The first full-scale battle of the New Galactic War took place above the abandoned human colony of New Hope. It was a fitting name, for it had once represented everything humans built, a garden world of silver-leaf trees and calm oceans, shared with 3 other species as a gesture of goodwill. Now its skies burned with plasma fire. The Vorth Armada arrived first, 3,000 warships arranged in a perfect wedge formation. Their commander, Admiral Kax-Tor, had studied human tactics for 40 years. He knew their patterns, their patience, their ability to turn enemies into allies. But humans were gone. Today, he faced the Xylari, who fought like mathematics, cold, efficient, and utterly without mercy. The Xylari fleet appeared not as ships, but as a swarm of crystalline shards, each one a computer and a weapon. Their doctrine was simple: calculate the enemy's every possible move, then strike where the calculation failed. Without human unpredictability, the wild card that had always broken their algorithms, the Xylari were nearly unbeatable. For 11 hours, the battle raged. Ships died in fire. Crews screamed into vacuum. Admiral Kax-Tor watched his wedge crumble, ship by ship, as the Xylari shards sliced through his formations like scalpels. He ordered a retreat, not because he was a coward, but because he remembered one of the few human sayings he admired: live to fight another day. But there was no safe place to retreat. The war had spread to every sector. Neutral systems, once protected by human non-interference pacts, found themselves invaded by both sides. The Kren, a gentle arthropod species that had never built a weapon, saw their homeworld turned into a supply depot for Vorth forces. The Xylari, aquatic singers who traded art for technology, were conscripted into building Xylari quantum computers against their will. Entire species became refugees, crowding into the few remaining pockets of peace, which themselves were shrinking. And through all of this, the humans remained silent. Their shield around Terra still glowed, a quiet wall of impossible energy. Their colonies remained dark. Their ships, the most advanced in the galaxy, sat docked and dormant. Every few weeks, a new theory spread through the refugee camps and war rooms. Humans are waiting for us to destroy ourselves. Then they will return and rule the ashes. Humans found a way to ascend to a higher dimension and left us behind. Humans never existed at all. They were a shared hallucination, a myth we built to explain our own lost potential. The last theory was the saddest, because it revealed the truth the galaxy could not face. They had depended on humanity so completely that they no longer believed in their own competence. On the Vorth homeworld, a rebellion began, not against the Xylari, but against the war itself. Young Vorth, who had never seen a human except in old recordings, demanded to know why they were fighting. Their elders had no answer. The official reason, defending Vorth honor, felt hollow when entire fleets were lost every month. The secret reason, fear of Xylari supremacy, seemed childish when both sides were bleeding into ruin. On the Xylari homeworld, a similar doubt spread through the crystalline network. Their mathematics predicted victory in any conflict where all variables were known. But the war had introduced a variable they could not calculate: their own exhaustion. The crystals were cracking under the strain of constant computation. Some Xylari simply stopped thinking, their minds falling into silent, infinite loops. Without humans to mediate, to joke, to offer a third option that no one had considered, the galaxy was not just losing a war. It was losing its soul. One night, in a ruined observatory on New Hope, a young Vorth soldier named Tessir found something. A human data slate, left behind in the evacuation. Its screen was cracked, but it still powered on. Inside was a single file, a video log from a human scientist, recorded on the day the humans severed contact. The scientist was an older woman with gray hair and tired eyes. She spoke not to the galaxy, but to herself. Tessir watched, her translator struggling with the humans' quiet words. We tried everything. Diplomacy, trade, even a few wars we didn't want. But every time we solved a problem, they forgot how to solve it themselves. We became a crutch, a drug. And now, if we stay, they'll never learn to stand alone. So we're leaving. Not because we hate them, because we love them too much to let them stay weak. Tessir replayed the log 3 times. Then she copied it, encrypted it, and sent it to every neutral ship she could reach. The mystery of why humans severed contact finally had an answer, but understanding it did not end the war. It only made the conflict more painful. Document 3: The war entered its 3rd year with no end in sight. Both the Vorth Armada and the Xylari Concord had lost over 40% of their military forces. Civilian casualties numbered in the billions. The neutral systems had formed a desperate coalition called the Remnant, led by a Kren named Elder Chitter, who had never wanted to lead anything except her own hive. The Remnant's strategy was simple: survive. They hid in nebulous, asteroid fields, and the abandoned ruins of human colonies. They scavenged wreckage for fuel and food, and they shared the human log that Tessir had found. Slowly, quietly, the truth spread. The humans had not abandoned the galaxy out of weakness or malice. They had performed a surgical withdrawal, a last act of tough love. They had gambled that without them, the other species would either destroy themselves or finally grow up. So far, destruction was winning. But the log also contained a second part, one that Tessir had not revealed to anyone. In the final seconds of the recording, the human scientist had looked directly at the camera and whispered, "If you're watching this, you're one of the few who kept looking for answers. Good. Here's the real secret. We left a key. Find the beacon at the edge of the galactic core. It will only open for someone who understands why we left." Tessir had kept this secret because she feared what would happen if both sides learned of the beacon. The Vorth would see it as a weapon. The Xylari would see it as a tool for domination. Only the Remnant, the broken and the desperate, might see it as what it truly was, a test. So she went to Elder Chitter and confessed. The Elder, a creature the size of a small shuttle with multifaceted eyes and a voice like rustling leaves, listened without interruption. Then she said, "The humans were our teachers. But the best teachers do not give answers. They give questions. This beacon is a question. We must go find it." The journey to the galactic core took 6 months. The Remnant fleet, 73 ships, most held together by prayers and patchwork, flew through war zones and abandoned territory. Twice, Vorth patrols nearly caught them. 3 times, Xylari sensor nets brushed against their hulls. They survived because they were small, quiet, and utterly determined. The beacon was not a structure. It was a point in empty space where the laws of physics seemed to bend. Stars appeared slightly out of focus. Time moved a fraction slower. And in the center of this distortion floated a single human object, a small, silver sphere no larger than a human fist. Tessir volunteered to approach it. She wore an old human environmental suit, salvaged from New Hope, that smelled of dust and ozone. As she reached for the sphere, it unfolded like a flower made of light. A hologram appeared, the same scientist from the log, now smiling. "You made it. That means you understand why we left. Not to punish you, but to free you." The galaxy never needed human protection. It needed human courage, the courage to fail, to learn, to become better on your own. The beacon contains no weapon, no technology, no cheat codes. It contains a single gift, a communication channel to Terra. One message, one chance to call us back. But if you call us back now, you will never learn to stand on your own. The choice is yours. Tessir returned to the Remnant fleet with trembling hands. Elder Chitter convened a council. Every captain, every refugee leader, every survivor had a voice. Some argued for calling the humans immediately. Others said they would rather die free than live as children forever. The debate lasted 3 days. On the 4th day, a Vorth fleet found them. Admiral Kax-Tor himself led the attack. He had followed the Remnant across half the galaxy, convinced they were hiding a Xylari superweapon. When he saw the beacon, he smiled with all his needle teeth. "Human technology. Perfect. You will give it to me, or I will turn your fleet into scrap." Tessir stood before him, unarmed and terrified. But she did not bow. She said, "This is not a weapon. It is a test, and you have already failed it." Kax-Tor laughed. He ordered his troops to seize the sphere. But the moment a Vorth claw touched it, the beacon vanished, reappeared, then split into 73 identical spheres, each one flying into the bridge of every Remnant ship. A message broadcast on all frequencies. "The test has been triggered by violence. New parameters. The humans will return in 1 standard year, unless peace is achieved first. Every day of war delays their return by 1 month. Every act of peace accelerates it by 1 week. The clock starts now." The galaxy held its breath. Document 4. Admiral Kax-Tor did not believe the beacon's message. He called it a trick, a human illusion designed to sow confusion. He ordered his fleet to fire on the Remnant ships. But his weapons officers refused. They had seen the sphere duplicate itself. They had heard the message. And they had families they wanted to see grow old, not burn in a war that no one could remember starting. Mutiny spread through the Vorth fleet like fire. Younger officers arrested their commanders. Supply ships turned back from the front lines. On the homeworld, the rebellion Tessir had inspired finally erupted into open revolution. The Vorth people took to the streets, not with weapons, but with signs bearing a single human word, enough. The Xylari reacted differently. Their crystalline minds processed the beacon's message as a mathematical proof. If war delayed the humans' return and peace accelerated it, then the optimal strategy was immediate and total ceasefire. Within a week, every Xylari ship powered down its weapons. Within a month, they had begun sharing food and medical supplies with Vorth refugees. It was not forgiveness. It was not friendship. It was self-interest, calculated coldly. But self-interest, the humans had always known, could be the first step towards something better. Elder Chitter, now the de facto leader of the temporary Galactic Peace Council, proposed a radical idea. Do not wait for the humans to return. Instead, use the year to rebuild what had been broken, not with human help, but with their own hands. The Vorth agreed to share plasma technology. The Xylari offered quantum computing expertise. The neutral species, who had suffered most, were given seats at every table. For the first time in galactic history, the Council worked without a mediator. It was clumsy. Fights broke out. Alliances shifted. But slowly, painfully, agreements were signed. Trade routes reopened. Refugee camps became permanent settlements. The dead were mourned, and the living were given purpose. Tessir became a symbol, though she hated the role. She traveled from world to world, telling the story of the beacon and the human scientist's log. She did not preach peace. She simply asked one question: what would you have done if humans had never come? The answer, for most species, was terrifying. They would have learned to solve their own problems much sooner. They would have made mistakes, yes. But those mistakes would have been theirs, and their victories would have been theirs, too. The year passed. The clock the beacon had promised ticked down to 0. And on the final day, in the empty space where the sphere had once floated, a single human ship appeared. It was not a warship. It was a small, unarmed vessel, painted white and blue, with the word Ambassador written in 30 languages across its hull. The hatch opened, and an old woman stepped out, the same scientist from the log, now 10 years older, her gray hair turned white. She looked at the fleet of Remnant, Vorth, and Xylari ships gathered around her, none of them firing, none of them afraid. She smiled. You did it, she said. You didn't need us after all. Admiral Kax-Tor, stripped of his rank but still present as a civilian observer, stepped forward. His voice cracked. We needed you to leave. The scientist nodded. That is the hardest lesson a parent can teach. But you learned it. And now, she paused, looking at the ships, at the species who had fought and bled and finally grown. Now, if you'll have us, we would like to come home. Not as your protectors, as your neighbors. Elder Chitter raised her multifaceted eyes to the stars. The galaxy has room for neighbors. But no more crutches. If you return as equals. We solve our own problems. We fight our own fights. And if you ever leave again, we will survive that, too. The scientist extended her hand. Elder Chitter did not have hands, but she extended a translator drone, and the two touched, a gesture that would be carved into monuments for millennia. The humans returned slowly, colony by colony, ship by ship. They brought no gifts of technology or wisdom. They brought only themselves, flawed, hopeful, and finally ready to be part of a galaxy that no longer needed saving. And the mystery of why they had severed contact became a story told to children, not as a warning, but as a promise, that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone you love is to walk away and trust them to find their own way back. The galaxy remained chaotic. Conflicts still flared. Species still argued. But the violence never again reached the scale of those 3 terrible years. Because now, when a dispute arose, the first question asked was not, what would the humans do, but what can we do together? And that, the humans knew, was victory.